This is question number 5 of the IGCSE Human Biology Sample Assessment paper, June 2019, paper 1. So the question says, part A, the diagram shows a red blood cell and a blood capillary drawn to the same scale. Here, since they have mentioned a same scale, the same scale means that the items being compared have a consistent ratio, proportion, or magnitude, which allows direct comparison for size or intensity or the value. All right. And here they have provided here a red blood cell diagram and a blood capillary diagram. And part 1 states that why only one red blood cell at a time can travel through the blood capillaries. This is a 1 marker question. So since they have spoken over here about the blood capillary, let's know in a more detailed way about the capillary. So the blood capillary is basically the smallest type of blood vessel among that all the types of blood vessels present. All right. And also their function is that they carry blood through organs, bringing the blood close to every cell in the organs so that the substances are transferred between the blood and in the capillary or and the cells very efficiently. All right. According to the structure, they have a one cell thick wall, and this allows the distance for diffusion to be very short. Hence the diffusion of substances from the capillary to the cell or from the cell to the capillary red blood cell is very efficient. All right. And also their lumen is small enough to fit one red blood cell at a time, so that the red blood cells are very close to the wall of the capillary and also the cells. This means that the diffusion distance is very short, and hence diffusion rate of diffusion increases. Okay. So since they have asked here, state why only one blood cell at a time can travel through the blood capillary. Let's answer this question. So since they have asked why only one red blood cell is able to pass through the capillaries at a time, this is because the diameter of the red blood cell and the diameter of the lumen is the same. Hence, only one red blood cell is about to fit at a time. All right. Moving on to part 2, it says that explain why the advantage of one blood cell at a time traveling through a capillary. So, as I have explained before, the advantage is basically that since the red blood cells are more closer contact to the capillary wall, which means a more closer contact to the cells which are near the capillary walls, this means that the rate of diffusion distance is decreased, and hence the rate of diffusion of substances in and out is faster. All right. So it is a 3 marker question. Let's answer this question. Here, since they're asking for advantages, I have listed a few according to the 3 marks: that more diffusion of oxygen into the cell, as I have stated earlier, and shorter diffusion distance. You can also write that greater surface area in contact with capillary walls, which means that greater rate of diffusion. Okay. And to the last point, that slower flow of RBCs and hence more time for diffusion to take place. All right. Moving on to the last part of this question, part B. Here it states that cigarette smoke affects the function of red blood cells. Explain why the birth weights of babies born to mothers who smoke cigarettes tend to be lower than the mean birth weight. Okay, and this is a 3 marker question. So they have asked us why mothers who smoke cigarettes give birth to babies with lower birth weight. All right, this means that the growth of the baby is not proper. All right. So basically, when we speak of smoking, when a person smokes, carbon monoxide from the smoke enters the lungs. What happens is that it interferes with the activity of the oxygen and hemoglobin since they bind to form oxyhemoglobin. What they do is that um, hemoglobin has a much more greater affinity for carbon monoxide than oxygen. When it finds carbon monoxide over there, it quickly binds to carbon monoxide, forming carboxyhemoglobin, and hence this reduces the oxygen to bind to the RBCs. Hence, the oxygen is not transferred to the cells properly, which means that less cells are getting oxygen. And carbon monoxide, when it binds to hemoglobin, it forms carboxyhemoglobin, which is irreversible. It cannot be reversible back to carbon monoxide and hemoglobin. And this means that less aerobic respiration take place. Since less aerobic respiration is taking place for the absence of oxygen, I mean, not total absence of oxygen, but not reduced presence of oxygen, it means that less energy is released in the baby, which is in the fetus, which means that there is less growth. All right. Since all the reactions, cellular reactions, are not perfectly taking place as normal. Okay. So since we have discussed about it, let's write down this question. I have answered over here that less oxygen is transported to the baby due to presence of carbon monoxide, as it has a higher affinity for RBCs than oxygen. This means that less aerobic respiration takes place and hence there is less growth of the developing baby. You can also mention here of the carboxyhemoglobin formation. However, since it is a 3 marker, so I have kept it up to point. So here the mark distribution is the first mark comes here for less oxygen transport to the baby due to the presence of carbon monoxide, which is from here to here. The second mark we can consider from that it has a higher affinity for the RBCs than oxygen. And the last mark is that less aerobic respiration takes place and hence the growth of the baby is less. Less aerobic respiration takes place means that there is less production of energy. You can also mention that. All right. So here we are done with this question. Let's move on to the next one.